Ms. Sawalski, this is Rich. We're ready when you are.
Okay, let's do it then. Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Happy New Year 2021. We are going to start by calling the meeting to order. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. A few announcements this evening regarding in-person attendance. Please remain socially distanced 6 feet apart and wear your masks properly at all times. Regarding public comment, we will continue to take public comment from those in attendance and from those on Zoom. I will do my best to balance comments from those in person and from those on Zoom. In the beginning of the meeting, we will take public comment on agenda items only. Both public comment in the beginning and at the end of the meeting will allow for community members to speak for 3 minutes with no cap. If public comment runs for more than 1 hour, I will ask the board to revisit the cap. And as always, I ask all who speak to do so in a cooperative spirit and to remain respectful of each other at all times. I also want to mention that we had an executive session prior to tonight's meeting and also in December on December 21st. I think that we have one board member who also wanted to make an announcement. Linda?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a short statement. This job has been challenging for me. I'm not comfortable with confrontation or speaking in public. And for the past 3 years, I've tried to work hard and contribute to the district as a school board member who cares deeply about public education. This year has been challenging for anyone working in public education. I've been astonished by the level of blame and toxicity at the school board meetings, and I feel I have to speak up. Over the past 6 months, some board members and members of the administration have been targeted at meetings and on social media. Several weeks ago, a group of approximately 15 or so protesters came to my house when it was late and dark. They yelled, chanted through megaphones, blew bullhorns, and walked around my front yard and shone large bright lights into the front windows of my home. It was intimidating and frightening for myself and my family. The majority of the protesters were not even from the school district that I represent. They had been reading about Springford on social media and chose to target me personally. I would like to ask the public and the board to be careful of what you post and realize that using social media to air grievances and stir up hatred and anger has wider consequences. A group of people spent the night in front of my house trying to create fear because of things posted online, not because they knew any of the facts about the school district itself. They were chanting, "Open the school," having no idea that Springford was currently in session and open. Nothing this year is ideal or as it used to be. To deal with so many challenges and unknowns successfully, we need to show understanding, respect, and resilience, not anger, intimidation, and blame. One way allows us to work together and move forward. The other creates a toxic environment that delays progress and resolution of issues and inspires fear that prevents people from speaking up or acting in the best interest of the community. I understand that people are angry. I understand that you're anxious and frustrated, and I share some of those emotions. What I'm asking is that those who are angry and frustrated be civil and careful about what you say and post. Words and actions matter, and normalizing angry, toxic behavior has real-life consequences that damage this community. Nothing this year is simple or easy. Often the public seems to think that the district or the school board can turn a switch and magically make something happen. Each new pivot for the district of close to 8,000 students is incredibly complex. All summer long, multiple teams have worked on 3 return to school plans. Each plan constantly had to change and evolve as every condition those plans were based on changed. Evolving science of the virus, evolving state and county mandates, supply and demand issues, staffing issues, funding, unbudgeted expenses, changes in curriculum and technology. The list goes on. After all that work, the board required more changes to the plan, and it went back to the drawing board and it was changed again. The administration and the board desperately want to have students back in the buildings, especially those of highest need. So many pieces have to be in place and working to safely and legally educate in person. To get the students back in person by the November date, 10 departments had hundreds of tasks to complete. Just a few of the largest included staffing needs for teachers, staffing needs for nurses, the tech department, for bus drivers, PPE, cleaning supplies, professional training, additional technology, meeting building COVID metrics, meeting county metrics, and meeting all safety and health protocols. The district began identifying and working on these tasks as early as the beginning of the summer, but had to deal with funding issues, staffing shortages, supply shortages, denial, and toxicity. Each task was clearly defined. Each one had a start date, an end date, associated costs, requirements, and was assigned to a particular department and staff. But many of these tasks required unbudgeted funds that had to be approved. All board members got a version of the plan every week and an overview of the entire effort at the property committee meetings throughout the fall. Why am I detailing all this? Because I often feel that the public does not have a sense of the enormous effort that the administration, the teaching staff, the medical staff, the district staff have constantly been making to get these kids back to school and provide educational choice for all the families. I want to sincerely thank the majority of the community who've sent emails, texts, calls over the past 8 months. They've provided honest feedback, concerns, and questions without personally targeting the board or the administration. I appreciate your input and want to hear from everyone. To those who've been most vocal in blame, social media attacks, and heightened emotion, I ask you to please return to civility and respect, primarily because it will allow the district to resolve the issues more effectively and more quickly, but also because it will stop inciting angry people to target Spring Forward staff, administration, and board members. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Also, do we have a student report? Are there any announcements this evening from our student representatives?
There are no announcements this evening.
Okay. So with that, we will move into public comment. And we will start with public to be heard on agenda items only. We will start with those that are in the building. Do we have any speakers in the building?
There's no one at the podium.
Okay, do we have anyone online on Zoom who would like to make a public comment?
At this time, there are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. We will then move on to our action item this evening. Board approval is needed to accept the resignation of Dr. David Gooden, the Superintendent of Schools, for the purpose of retirement into the Pennsylvania Public Employees Retirement System. The effective date of Dr. Gooden's resignation with the district shall be February 2nd, 2021. Dr. Gooden has accepted the position of Superintendent of Schools for Sampson County, North Carolina. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments about the motion? There will be an opportunity in just a few minutes to wish Dr. Gooden well. Are there any questions or comments about the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. And now a tribute to Dr. Gooden. First, Dr. Gooden, thank you. Thank you so much for all you've done here at Spring Forward and your service to the district. And with that, we will first hear from State Representative and longtime Spring Forward School Board member, Joe Cerisi.
Thank you. I'm disappointed you're not here, Colleen, to cut my mic.
I can still have it done.
Tom is moving over to it right now. I see
Oh,
that.
good. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak tonight, and just want to take a minute to thank you all for your service. I know how difficult it's been over the last almost year, and the way you've all worked together and the community has worked together is a great example. It's a rough time, I know, for everyone, and thank you for being flexible and working for what's best for all 8,000 students and the 1,000 staff members. Tonight, I have the pleasure, both pleasure and sadness, to say goodbye to Dave and thank you. And as I walked through the building, I remember the day we hired Dave. So I have something I've signed today, like we signed the first day. I think I signed your first contract, Dave. But as I walked through the hallways of the building, I looked at all the accomplishments that were happening over the last 10 years, the different things we put up on our graduates and the accomplishments, the Newsweek reports that we had when the district became one of the top districts in the nation, drove past the 8th grade center, the Blue Ribbon School, first time ever in the district, the programs we put in place. And I thought, Tom DeBello is not retiring. Wait a minute, what am I talking about these programs for? But to get serious, Dave, we worked extremely hard on what happened with this district to move this district forward as a board, as an administrative team, and with you at the helm. And there were those dark days that we had. You and I went toe-to-toe on multiple occasions on different issues in public meetings and in private meetings. But together as a district, you were able to accomplish a great deal. And I'm sorry to see you leave. Now, I know you're going back home to the South, where if you wanted to go, we used to say that all the time. And I look forward to continuing our conversations with you in the South down there. And I know you'll invite us all down in the winter months, but leaving Springford, you leave behind a great legacy. So because you're leaving so quickly, and I found it ironic that your last day is Groundhog Day, we wrote up a certificate that we wrote in the office, but we are working on a real citation from the state. It says, in recognition of your 9+ years of service as superintendent of the Springford Area School District, during which time the district achieved significant gains in student achievement, capital improvements, professional development, fiscal responsibility, and more. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your time, and we'll miss you in Pennsylvania and at Springford. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Cerisi. That was well said. And now we will view a video presentation kindly put together by Erin Crew and Andrew Rothermel. Are we ready to play that?
Yes, we are. It should be shared shortly, momentarily.
Do we have audio on that?
While we're waiting, I can do a personal thank you. Are we going?
I think it's coming.
Well, I think I look rather dashing. Well, let's go see. Where am I going to work today? And so what I've done for the first 7 weeks really is just reach out to people just to get a feel for who the personalities were and what areas they were involved in.
Hi, Dr. Gooden. Sending a really big thanks your way for everything you've done to make Springford a better place for staff, students, and for the community. Thanks so much, and good luck.
Thank you for everything that you did for me, for Springford, and I want to wish you the best moving on to North Carolina at your new home and getting back down south.
The National Blue Ribbon is a tremendous honor and reflects the quality of education students receive here at Springford.
Thank you for your commitment to the Springford community over the last decade. I'm grateful for your support of your staff, especially during this very difficult year. I wish you health and happiness as you begin your new journey. Good luck. We'll miss you.
And but when you're inside and you're in the heat of it and you're dealing with it day by day, you certainly gain a different perspective, and I've gained that different perspective as well. But you ask whether or not is it what I thought it would be, or is it better, is it worse? Spring Forward has exceeded my expectations.
Well, Dave, the time has come. You're going back home to North Carolina. I wanted to congratulate you and wish you good luck. Thank you for the years that we did a lot with this district and everything you did for our district.
So we really try to build on that and make sure that they have an experience that is, going to be memorable for them.
Dr. Gooden, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for all you've done for us the last 10 years. I wish you nothing but the best moving forward. Thanks again.
It takes courage on the part of the community to embrace such an idea and accept and recognize that when we do for our students and we plan for our students, that it benefits our community.
Doc, we've had lots of great conversations. I appreciate the opportunity and the trust that you've had in me to bring me here to Spring Forward. I wish you nothing but the best. I know this is a move that you were looking forward to at some point. So wish you nothing but success, and we'll miss you here. Take care.
Hey, Dr. Gooden. Congratulations on your retirement from Pennsylvania, and you're heading down to North Carolina. A couple words of advice, if I could, from a famous book that I know you enjoy reading, How to Improve Your Skills So You Don't Look Bad. I picked out a few random quotes for you. One, it's okay to make up stories about your past to create a life of mystery. Hey, that's the way it's always been done. And then one more word of advice, learn one good dance move. You got to have one-of-a-kind dance move, and please make sure it's got a twirl in it. You need a little help there, because all you usually do is just dance with your arms. But seriously, Dr. Gooden, congratulations. I'm so happy for you. Thank you for everything you've done for me, being a mentor, a friend, helping me build my deck, and just being a great guy. Thanks so much, and you can do it. Enjoy. Congratulations again.
I just want to send out a thank you to you for all you've done for Spring Forward and for your efforts to work with me on the board. I appreciate all that you've done, your leadership, your guidance here at Spring Forward, and wish you the absolute best in your new position.
Those of us in the Spring Forward community have taught. Let's start over. I'm just making too many. I know for the last, I've not been known for being very technologically astute.
10 years, it's a long time. It's been a wild ride. I want to thank you for making me the strong, confident, sometimes outspoken person that I am today. Enjoy the time with your boys. Don't worry about us. We're going to be fine, thanks to the strong administrative team you have put in place and are leaving us with. Take care, and God bless.
Thank you for that piece. That was well done. I hope there were some memorable moments in there, Dr. Gooden, that you can recall. And also now, are there any board members who would like to share some words of gratitude and well wishes to Dr. Gooden?
Sure, I'd like to say something. Dr. Gooden, I want to just take the time to thank you personally for your years of hard work and dedication to the Spring Forward School District and community. Your career has been highlighted by the district's constant advancement and recognition academically, great success in music, arts, and athletics, and recognized superiority in special education. You've helped create a school district to be proud of. I've appreciated and admired your ability to lead by taking responsibility, working collectively with the board, administration, and the teaching staff. And you've always provided a strong moral compass for the district to follow. Your work and dedication will leave a strong legacy behind it, and the community and the students of Spring Forward have benefited in so many ways from your tenure. I wish you great success in your next venture and send you off with great appreciation for all that you've done. Thank you.
Dr. Gooden, I think I met you your first day here or thereabouts. And it's been a privilege to sit next to you. But more than that, as a parent whose children have gone through this district and for the most part, while you were at the helm. I certainly appreciate all that you have brought to this district, all the opportunities that you've brought to our students, to our children, to our families, and to our community. You will be missed. Certainly sitting next to me at the table and for some of the conversations that we have on the sidebar, but really I wish you all of the best. I know you're going home. I know that's where you want to be, and I wish you such success and calm as you move into your next stage. So thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to say that although we've only worked together for a very, very short time, I want to thank you for all of your efforts and everything that you've done. I have 2 generations that have gone through Springford, and I appreciate all your efforts. Good luck and good health.
Well, Dr. Gooden, I just found out you were leaving today, so I didn't have a chance to tape anything. As Mr. Cerisi, Representative Cerisi stated, we were part of hiring you like 10 years ago. I remember it was a long drawn out process, and we finally got to finding the right person for Springford, and it was you. And unfortunately, people always remember the last thing great leaders have done, and what they won't realize, and I hope they do realize over time, is that when you came here to Springford was at a point where we were going in the not necessarily the right direction, and we had the board at the time had a big vision for the district. And when you came in, I think we gave you about a week or week and a half to get yourself settled. And I remember Mr. Cerisi and myself meeting with you and laying out our 72 different objectives that we want to complete it in the first 6 months. And what was it, just all kidding aside. We did have our little fun lines over time in our meetings. And, one of the fun meetings I can remember is when you were stung by a bee at your house, and even Ms. Fern remembers this. We took the opportunity during that meeting to constantly keep making references to bees and stings, and I think I ever mentioned about beehives, women wearing beehive hairdo, and I don't think you ever picked up on what we were doing, but we did have a little bit of fun with you as well. But going back over the 10 years, as was pointed out earlier, the enormity that was completed in your tenure here at Springford is just unbelievable. When you look at Springford, where we went just nationally being rated, our high school constantly being rated higher and higher each year, the district moving up in the state rankings, being known as one of the top districts in Pennsylvania, winning the National Blue Ribbon, setting the tone for hybrid learning at Spring City and Royersford, which was recognized nationally. The school districts that contacted us for years afterwards when we rolled out at Spring City, and we're intrigued by what we were able to accomplish there. The Modernized Learning Initiative, that we took the whole one-to-one computer concept and took it way beyond what a lot of other districts were looking at, and what we rolled out, I think was going to serve Springford well over the years. I mean, the list goes on and on. Working with us, adding the number of AP classes, going from 11 to I think we're up to 23 or 24. All this sounds easy now, but the time and efforts that it took to accomplish each one of these tasks is just unbelievable. And yes, this past year was rough for everyone. I know that times, tensions were raised between, I know even myself and you. I mean, we had, our conversations, and the thing is that there was passion behind what we were trying to achieve, and I always respected you for that. What one of the other big things I want to point out is that you over the years have built what I feel is one of the best administrative teams in the area. I think that you have always brought in really, really top administrators. Each one of them has served the district well and helped us continually grow. It's unfortunate Dr. Roach wasn't able to make the meeting tonight because we could have had a little bit of fun with him, but unfortunately he's not here. And also, one of your biggest accomplishments, I have to say, is probably participating in the Dancing with the Stars that we had. We did what, the one year we did the swing dance, and one year we did dancing, square dancing or whatever. So that was a lot of fun. So I hope people realize that let's not look at this past year as a failure year, because it certainly was nowhere near failure. I mean, although as Linda pointed out earlier in the evening, that there was just a lot of variables that we had to take into consideration, and maybe things didn't go like we have hoped them to go. But I think over the 10 years being here at Springford, the accomplishments are when I think back of everything that was achieved during your tenure, is just amazing. And you were a big part of making Springford. Obviously, we have great administrators, we have great professional staff. We have a great, all staff within the district itself, but you were at the helm of that and made it happen. So I appreciate everything. And I also appreciate the friendship that we developed over the 10 years and the fun that we had from time to time, sitting back and trying to relax and forget about some of this as well. So thank you for everything. And I look forward to hearing about your next chapter in your life.
So Dave, just briefly, it's scary company that I find myself in a small group with Tom DeBello and Joe Cerisi, but I was on the board when you were hired as well. And I recall the interview dinner we had above Giovanni's. At least I recall the beginning of the evening. I'd like to say that, publicly, I mean, first of all, to be a superintendent, I think there's something wrong or something right with all of you. I'm not sure which one drives that, but it's a crazy job, and this community and certainly this board, I think, has expected a lot of that position, and you've managed to lead this district well for 9, almost 10 years. And the average tenure is what, 3 years, somewhere around there. So I think the district was very fortunate that you were here for such a long time. And as you move into this next planned place in your life, I hope that you'll recall this time, this very important time in your life, very fondly. This community is better off because of you being here. And so thank you, and I wish you the best.
All right, well, that was a number of comments and compliments for Dr. Gooden. Thank you so much again for everything you've done here. 10 years what you've accomplished in 10 years is just incredible. So we are very grateful. At this point then, Christina Melton will now present to you, Dr. Gooden, with the usual gift and also a second framed photo.
That is a map of the Springford School District area. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And now I think there should be a round of applause for Dr. Gooden and his years of service with us. Thank you. Okay, going to be hard to compete with that for the rest of the meeting, but we will move on to our additional agenda items, and we'll start with Dr. Collier to present to introduce and recognize students of the quarter. Dr. Collier? And I should note that this is an added presentation item.
Thank you for the flexibility to get this opportunity for the high school administration to recognize 4 of our high school students tonight. These students are and have been nominated by their teachers as students of the quarter. So we are pleased to be able to carry this on to this year. Nominations are based on students' grades, attendance, leadership, respect, participation, all the characteristics that we like to see out of our students. So these 4 students certainly made a very favorable impression upon their teachers for the first marking period. Student board reps, if you could stand in the middle. Thank you. I do want to, in advance, thank Andrew Rothermill. He made a student spotlight video that he'll put out on Ram Country YouTube tomorrow. A brief interview with all of our students of the quarter for anybody to watch. First student of the quarter that we'd like to recognize is 9th grader Isabella Voigt. Our 10th grade student of the quarter, Anastasia Maley. Our 11th grader student of the quarter, Nicole Grebe. And our senior student of the quarter couldn't make it here tonight, but his picture should be up on the screen, Ben Chevrier. So again, it's my pleasure. There you go. My pleasure as the high school principal and on behalf of all the high school administration and teachers to again congratulate our students of the first quarter.
Thank you so much. Congratulations to all of you. Our second presentation this evening will be by Bob Rizzo, the Assistant Superintendent, to provide an update on Q3 educational plans. Mr. Rizzo?
Thank you, Mrs. Howsky, and thank you, Board, for the opportunity to speak with you tonight about the third marking period, which scheduled to begin on February 2nd, 2021. We're just going to go through and give you where we were and where we would like to go and some of the steps we're going to need to take to get there. All right, it worked. So the first thing we need to discuss is what is currently in place. Currently, our model is K-6 students are in person or all virtual, no hybrid option, or they have the option for spring forward cyber learning. This is 5 days a week. And this has been the model we followed since, as you all know, November 12th. 7th through 12th looks a little bit different. We are hybrid, which means in 2 days and in attendance 2 days in the buildings, live synchronous instruction 2 days, and 1 day asynchronous, or however we're going to define those Wednesdays. And that has been the case once again since November 12th. And given the holidays and some of the things that have gone on, we've only had about 6 or 7 days actually in person for each of those, actually more like 9 or 10 now, for each of those color designations, whether they were blue or whether they were gold. Unlike K-6, 7 to 12 teachers are teaching both in person and they're teaching virtual at the same time and teaching asynchronous or synchronous hybrid at the same time. Students with special needs are in as many days as parents will tolerate. They are in for 4 days, or they could be virtual, or they could be hybrid if they chose. They have the option and the flexibility based on their needs and their family's comfort. Quarantine students at the 7 through 12 level can live stream into the classroom, and we have an attendance system in place to help support that. K-6 teachers have been working with their coaches and with teachers that are quarantined to create Canvas modules and stay with the current teacher and keep advancing their learning as well if they are quarantined. As we are preparing for our next steps, there are some things that we have options to discuss. The first option we have to discuss is that K to 6, we would like to continue moving forward as is. K to 6, either all in or all virtual, and then of course spring forward cyber learning. We want to make sure that at this point, what we have supported and continue to support is that K to 6 teachers focus on one learning environment. That's what we supported. That's what administration and the teachers and the association supported back in November, October, when we made these plans, and that's what we continue to support. At this point, what we are going to do is our recommendation is going to be till we keep moving forward with this plan. And we're not going to be sending out surveys at this point to K to 6 and communication. We'll be working directly with K to 6 teachers, K to 6 buildings, and the staff. So if parents have a concern about a particular learning model, and if they want to continue with where they're going, or if they want to make a switch, we are not at the district level looking to send any communication out. We are going to work with each building to work directly with that community. Spring City will work with Spring City office, et cetera, et cetera. For example, what we do want to stress though is if families decide that they do want to make a switch in this third quarter, they could potentially have up to 3 teachers so far this year, and we are very careful. We want to make sure we do not disrupt the learning of those students. We want to minimize that as much as possible. So we are asking families to do their best. Of course, if a family situation arises that necessitates a switch, then we would encourage them to reach out to the office, but otherwise, we're going to recommend that they continue moving forward along that path. Oh wait, I should keep moving these, huh? Okay. Considerations for 7 to 12, and these are considerations. We have some options. Fortunately, what we have in place and ready to go right now is we can continue with our hybrid model that is up and running. We can continue doing that if the board so desires. The next phase we could consider is enhancing the current model by bringing in tiered levels of support, bringing in students for 4 days, whether we bring in students that might not be performing well in a virtual environment, whether we want to start talking about bringing seniors or other grade level bands back. We want to start expanding when we can. There's an example up there where week 1, we might start all virtual, or not all virtual, but in hybrid. And then every couple of weeks, we bring back another tier until we have all that want to be in, able to be in. So that is another model that we could consider. The last option that we're seeing is do just a move to in-person, virtual, or spring forward cyber with no option for hybrid. That is the other end of the spectrum. This would eliminate the hybrid option, and students would attend in-person or virtual 4 days and then 1 asynchronous day. So let's talk a little bit about some of the data that we have collected so far. Back in October, we asked our families which option they wanted. At that particular point, we did a pre-survey. We got about 72 or 73% saying they wanted to be all in. When the actual commitment survey went out, 70.1% of our families committed to being in person in this hybrid model. By the end of December, that number had dropped. Instead of 70.1%, it dropped to 23%. Divided equally between blue and gold, that means about 22-ish, 23-ish% of our families our students were in the building at one time. So our buildings were relatively empty at the 7 to 12 level. The question we had was, is it working? Why did we see this decline? I'm going to cover that a little bit more later, but we were wondering, with so few students in the building, was that model the best model for us? Because what ended up happening was we had many classrooms with 1, 2, or 3 students in it, and the rest of the students online. So is it working? Have we given it a fair shot? Do we need to consider some other options? If it's not working, why isn't it working? We just know that our facilities are currently being underutilized. Yes, school safety, yes, physical distancing is important, but we're well beyond that. We have some very small numbers in our buildings. So I want you to remember these percentages: 100%, 70.1%, and 43%, because they're going to be significant as we get a little bit later on in the presentation. So the next thing that we did was we looked at what seats in a classroom would look like. With so many seats in a classroom, how far apart will our spacing be? Because physical distancing is still one of our COVID mitigation efforts. So generally speaking, grades 7 to 12 minus the senior wing that has the HVAC system, 30 students in a classroom would be 4-foot spacing in between. 24 students would be 5-foot spacing in between, and 16 students or less would be 6-foot socially distanced or spacing in between. And those numbers are slightly different, 3.5 feet for 30 students, and then 28, it goes to 4 feet, and so on, as it's illustrated right there. And this is where we're starting to come into with that 70.1%, that 100%, and that 43%. So when we think about the distancing, what we need to know is where are families comfortable sending their children to school. So let me give you an application of that. Here's where those percentages are going to come in. First example, if we have a classroom of 30 students. So if 100% of those students were in the classroom, everybody came in the district, no COVID, they would be 4 feet apart from each other. This is based on a typical classroom size of 850 to 900 square feet. They'd be 4 feet apart from each other. If we apply that 70.1%, which is that initial in number that we had considered, and that's all of them being in, not even being divided up, we would be at 5.5 feet socially distanced. If 43% of them came in and all 43% were in, we would have that 6-foot physical distancing that we need. Another example, because not all of our classes are at 30, some are smaller, some are at 20. So in this particular example, with 20 students, at 20, at 100% of all 20 in, 5.5 feet physical distancing. 14 students takes us up to 6% or 6 feet physical distancing. That's that 70.1%, that initial number. And then the 43, which is the actual at the end of December, we would be greater than 6 feet physical distancing there as well. Now, this is taking whole building numbers and spanning that out across all classrooms. That's not going to work that way. There's great variability in a secondary schedule. So Aiden Rizzo, my son, in first period could have 5 people in his classroom. Second period, he could have 30 because we don't have a way to evenly distribute all the students in all classes and all periods all day long. So the disclaimer we have to give families is that we cannot guarantee anything other than that minimum social distancing if everybody's in. But you see the averages. We can get close. At 30, we can get 4. At 24, we can get 5 feet for the most part. At 16, we can get our 6 feet social distancing. So why is that significant? Because as we consider, we're not there yet, but as we consider going back in, if we consider a model that does not include hybrid, and we have 70%, we go back up to that 70% of the people that want to be in the building, based on the numbers and an average across all classrooms, most of our classrooms will be around 5 feet socially distanced. If we have less than that, then we could get much closer to that 6 feet socially distanced and have our kids in 4 days. So that could be a goal that we want to get towards. Now, some of the questions that we've gotten is why are we still pushing 4 days instead of 5 days? And for the most part, our answer is really pretty simple. Because 7 to 12 teachers are still managing 2 learning environments, we need teachers to have some time to work with students, whether that be in small group, one-on-one, whether they can help through coaching, whether they can be part of small team meetings. They need to be able to support virtual students that are virtual 100% of the time or home all day long. They need to have access to that teacher at times too. And whenever the teacher is teaching in both platforms all day long, it's a little more challenging for them. They need help building content in Canvas. They need to put modules up there for those asynchronous times and to continue to support those students that are participating virtually or in a hybrid format. And what this also does for us, there's a national sub shortage. It's not sub shortage. It's not a Springford thing. It's a nationwide thing. And this helps us with that. It helps keep our doors open. It helps avoid that functional closure that some of our other partnering districts have had to endure. Moving on. So that brings us to data. We want to collect usable data, and a survey is only as good as the information that it gives us. So we wanted to make sure that the survey that we sent out, and we've done some surveys and some have come under scrutiny. Parents have requested a lot of information. Parents have said some of the surveys are a little difficult to understand. So we're trying to find that happy medium to get the data that we need and give parents the information they need to make an informed decision. So we're looking at a two-tiered survey system. The first one is really just gathering information. Back before we took the winter break, we did draw together a survey. We've had a few iterations of it. I want to thank many of the school board members, the administration, the SFBA leadership, and our parent groups. We had several community members complete the survey and give us input as a pilot survey, and we took that data and we took that those considerations very, very seriously. So the questions are really simple. We're asking 5 questions. First question: do you feel your child attending in person 2 days a week has been effective? And if no, why hasn't it been effective? Next question: if you opted for hybrid and then changed to virtual, please share your response. What we're getting at is we started out at 70.1%. We ended at 43%. What happened? Because we all know that those who don't know history are destined to repeat it. So we need to figure out what those reasons are so that we can effectively plan moving forward and maybe mitigate some of those concerns. While the actual seat distance in a specific classroom might be greater, it is possible that some seats in a classroom may be as close as 3.5 feet. So what we're asking is, what is your preference if these things are in place? If we can only guarantee this and these measures we can put into place, what is your option? What are you thinking at this time? And it's not a commitment. It's really just a gauge to see where the community is so we can get some of that data. If we're 4 feet apart, are families comfortable with that? If they're 5 feet apart, are they comfortable with that? So we're working towards getting that information. What factors need to be in place when considering sending your child back to school 4 days per week? And there's a list of things for them to select from to help us understand what should we be looking for so that we know what our families need so they can have that level of comfort. And then lastly, we're just collecting some information from families. What else do we need to know? And that's a long response. So they could type in as much as they want, because one of the things that we have heard is that our community wants to have some feedback. So we want to give them an opportunity to share what they're thinking if it didn't show up on their survey as it is. So that's the idea between the survey. That would be the first one. Our plan would be to administer that survey tomorrow and have that be live for 3 days. Friday, give us the opportunity to crunch that data, to compare, see where we are. Based on those physical distancing guidelines that I shared with you earlier, what are we able to achieve and what level of comfort do our families have and what percentage? And then we would then make some decisions or bring to the board to make some decisions. So that's the idea there. The second tier, I mentioned it's a 2-tier survey system. The second tier would be very simple. What would you like for your child? Which option would you like for your child? It's not going to be long drawn out. We're going to give them the data. We're going to post the data on the website. We're going to put it in the survey, and we're going to let them choose the option that is best for them. So a couple of things to consider. First of all surveys are done through Skyward. There has been some question both administratively at the school board level as well as in the community about is Google Forms a good tool and are we collecting data that we can use? Everything is through Skyward. We have the demographic data by doing it that way. We will get the information we need from those 5 questions. It will be linked to the student, linked to the parents, so we'll be able to use that information to make some decisions. So the options, some of the things we were talking about, as I said, Spring Forward Cyber Learning is going to be there. We still plan on it being there. Full-time virtual is still going to be there for families that want it, or we would recommend that it still be there for families who want it. And then we'd like to be able to consider at some point providing a full-time 4-day option for our families that want that as well. And we cannot forget the fact that our ELL population, our students with special needs, they are going to be able to continue in the vein that they've been going. We want to make sure that they still have the learning opportunities that have allowed them to be successful so far. All right, so let me get to the rights. So a couple of things that I want to, the guarantees in the attestation form. So when considering the full in-person model, and that will be the elimination of hybrid, distance can only be guaranteed 3.5 to 4 feet based on those numbers that I showed you earlier. That means that in most of our classrooms, we would be able to achieve more of that, but we could really only guarantee 3.5 to 4 feet.
We cannot guarantee spacing in the hallways. Now, close contact is defined as 15 minutes within 6 feet. Most students would be walking by each other. But we want to be very clear that in the hallway with more students, there's going to be some close contact, not official close contact. We cannot guarantee 6 feet on school bus, but we're not guaranteeing that right now. There's no change in that. We're still putting 2 to a seat at the high school and middle school level, and 3 to a seat at the, if needed, 3 to a seat if need be. The attestation form, because some questions have come up about that, and there really are just a couple of main points. First, the one thing we signed off on was that we have to agree to the universal masking order. We have to wear our masks. The second thing is we must follow the recommendation for pre-K to 12 schools following the identification of a case of COVID when cases occur within a public school entity. And what that means is that website that we have shared that has the grid of if this school reaches this many cases, we're going to consider closing here. Whenever we have students that are positive in the school, how long we exclude them. When we have close contacts, how long we quarantine them. Those are all things that are out of our control that we have to follow. And by signing the attestation form, we signed off on making sure that we adhere to those. So entity guidance, and I think what I want to do at this point is just let you know how kind of unclear things are whenever we're looking for guidance from people other than Springford. So Montgomery County Office of Public Health and the CHOP Policy Lab, first, they've been great to work with. They have supported us in every way that we can. But their recommendation right now is that they think students should be in school, that schools are a safe place to be, and that kids need to be in school and they need to be learning. They reference a Swiss cheese model, and I'm going to show that to you here in a minute in terms of COVID mitigation strategies. But they also say that we should not be ramping up our efforts right now. They say that we should be staying the course, that we're going to have a time when we can ramp things up, but now is not the time. Now, that may seem like I'm contradicting myself, and I guess in part I am, but when we talk about that 70.1% that we were hitting on back in November, and if we apply that 70.1% model to our current model, we believe that our numbers will be pretty close to those same numbers, and we'll be able to open our spaces, utilize our spaces a little bit more, and allow our students to come into school safely. We don't know that yet. That's why we need to have that survey in place. But we believe that even though it looks like we're ramping up, because of the percentages of people that want to be home and want to be in for 4 days, we still believe we'll be able to meet that, but the survey results will help us identify that. PDE, you might know that there has been some recent updates from PDE. PDE is now recommending that elementary schools, K to 6, consider going to school in some form of hybrid, and that 7 to 12 remain full remote, full virtual. Now, this is a change from their position. They're actually loosening their requirements because their initial thought was counties that are in the substantial range should be full remote, K to 12. Now they're saying that let's start to get our elementary. We're beyond that right now. We're beyond that. And then our Springford school nurses, it's important that their voice be heard through all of this because they are our medical experts. And they still are expressing concern because while we're all in K to 6 in all of our classrooms, we are not able to reach that 6 feet social distance spacing. We've shared that. That's not anything we've hid. But because of that, that does create a series of concerns and some disruption to our students that are identified as close contacts. So they do have some concerns about that. As you know, or maybe you don't know, vaccines are something that are now happening across the county, across the Commonwealth. 1As are currently being vaccinated. Nurses, school nurses are part of 1A. Teachers, educators are part of 1B. We don't know when that rollout's going to be, but 1B should be in February if they're able to stay on track and they can get enough doses of the vaccine. Now, the Swiss cheese model. The Swiss cheese model was taken from Cleveland Clinic, but basically what that illustrates is not any one layer of protection for COVID mitigation is effective, but when you put them all together, the multiple layers create what we consider to be a safe environment. Some of the things that we are doing, we are masking, physical distancing, reducing occupancy and ventilation, hand washing, cleaning and disinfecting, closing buildings to outside entities, cohort grouping, minimizing travel around the buildings, not allowing visitors, and minimizing any in-person meetings. These are all strategies that help us keep COVID out and keep our kids in. So, and then the last thing I want to show you before I bring on our nurses to do the next part of the presentation is just to show you what our current numbers are. And I share this with the school board every week, and I do try and keep current. What you're looking at right now is our communities, which is Upper Providence, Limerick, Royersford, Spring City, Montgomery County, and then those are cases that are identified right here within Springford. Just so that you get a sense of where they are. We're always a little bit behind on getting the municipality numbers, so I'll have those numbers tomorrow. But those numbers you're seeing there are the most recent numbers, and I'll update that and send that out to the board as I get that. So that's the data. That's kind of where we are right now. I would like to turn it over to Nurse Smith, Trish Smith, who is, she and Laura McNeil Murphy have been fantastic, along with our two COVID liaisons to really help us kind of work through this COVID pandemic. So, Ms. Smith.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for asking for the nurse perspective. We see firsthand what this pandemic looks like in our schools, and I know it's rather difficult to understand the impact of a positive case in school when you aren't dealing with it each day. So the goal here is to shine a little bit of light on what's happening with our students and our teachers and with the nurses. I want to start by explaining how COVID-19 is so efficient at spreading. This slide demonstrates that an infected person is contagious and able to spread the virus 2 full days prior to feeling sick or testing positive. The red line indicates our likeliness to be spreading the virus that we don't even know we have yet. The blue line shows that by the time we feel symptoms, if we even have any, because we know that COVID can be very quiet, we've already been infected for days. This is why the CDC and the health department consider contact tracing to be a crucial part of protecting communities from further spread. If we're not efficient in isolating positive cases and quarantining close contacts, we run the risk of transmission of the virus occurring in our schools, which results in closing a classroom and/or a building. So this is what we're seeing happening in some of our schools right now. When nurses are notified that a person in school has COVID, our first task is to remove and quarantine any student or staff that's been within 6 feet of the positive person for over 15 minutes within the past 48 hours. We must rely on seating charts from every classroom that the student has been in during this infectious time period. When available, we look at the bus seating charts. We look at attendance. We ask the student, the parent, the teacher for their input. The goal is to prevent spread through exposed individuals remaining at school. This is only an example seating chart to demonstrate our recent experiences in school. It does not reflect any specific Springford classroom or students. When our friend at the red desk tested positive one night, we started notifying parents of all the students within 6 feet that they were now to quarantine as close contacts. These are the students that were exposed to COVID due to proximity. This is not a Springford rule, as Mr. Rizzo said, but it's required by the local and state health departments. Neither the nurses nor Springford administration has any authority over this practice. We made as many calls as possible before school started and then brought the remaining close contacts from class to the cafeteria, our socially distanced waiting room. We met the affected school bus outside and led those students to the cafeteria. Through all of the parent phone calls that day, we learned that our friend in this seat was homesick with multiple COVID symptoms that started early that morning. The CDC and the health department state that once a close contact develops symptoms, he is now a probable positive, even without a test. He or she must isolate and contact tracing must occur. So we checked to see if this student rode the bus in the previous 2 days, and we looked back to the classroom seating chart. More close contacts to the cafeteria, more calls to parents, more concerned students, and most importantly, more interruption to education and more potential viral spread. It's a difficult and stressful process for everyone. Now, we know that positive cases are surging, so we aren't surprised to see positives in our schools. Last week, we were notified of 45 Springford positives. We had 11 positive staff members, 11 positive secondary students, and 23 positive elementary students that we were told of. Of these 45 positive cases, 15 had been in school during that 48-hour infectious time period before realizing that they were ill. If we were socially distanced in each classroom, this would mean 15 absences, that's it. But because we sit within 6 feet of each other in some classrooms, we had to exclude close contacts around many of these positives. When we look at our close contact reports from last week, we processed a total of 169 close contacts from Springford. We separate these into 3 categories. There are close contacts to a positive community member, perhaps a neighbor, a close contact to a household member, such as a parent, or to a positive case in school, either another student or a staff member. What matters most to us here, as we consider Springford's future learning model, is that we had to send home 88 close contacts last week for 7 to 10-day quarantines due to being exposed to a positive COVID case in school. Springford will be adding this number, by the way, to the COVID dashboard sometime this week so that each week you can see this update. Due to Springford's current instructional model, when we aren't social distanced, any of these 88 students that are in grades K through 6 are now without their teachers for the next week at least. Their education is interrupted as we can only offer them asynchronous learning. Their parents now have to adjust their lives for their students who aren't sick but might be, all because we don't consistently social distance. If you think I'm choosing to report this tonight because of the strain on the nurses, you are right. We are overwhelmed. These reports come in continuously, and each one takes a lot of time and investigation. When we are put into the tailspin of contact tracing at school, we are distracted from our primary responsibilities, thus more likely to make a mistake. We know that operating under this distraction reduces the quality of care that we're giving our students, and that upsets us. I'm also reporting this, though, for the parents that are confused and frustrated about why their seemingly healthy students are being sent home for at least a week of quarantine. And then there's the impact on our teachers as we pull students from their room, continuously altering who is live in their class or who is now learning from home. But the real reason for explaining this process to you is because of the negative effect it has on our students. Last week, our close contact elementary students sat in the cafeteria, pulled from their classrooms, asking, wait, are we sick? When can we come back? And will I be virtual while I'm home? And no, we said, no, you're not sick. But no, you can't come to school for 7 to 10 days, and no, you won't be virtual or see your teacher while you're at home. So why are we doing this? In a county that's been at a substantial level of spread for months now, we expect to see staff and students catch this virus. We expect to have positives. These positive cases have resulted and will continue to result in short closures of some schools. It's not ideal, but when we close, at least the students continue to work synchronously with their teachers in a virtual platform from home. We can't control the positive community cases. It comes from being at a substantial level, so it's going to happen. But what we can control is this number of potential close contacts in our schools. We know that during the COVID pandemic, there has consistently been 3 basic rules for safety. Wear a mask, wash your hands, and maintain 6 feet of distance. We're doing great with the hand hygiene and mask wearing at Springford, and that's good news. But in many of our classrooms, we have too many students in too small of a space for effective social distancing. Springford's large number of school-related close contacts is the result of that negligence. Practicing 2/3 of that mitigation strategy is not enough. Our quarantines continued last week, unfortunately, when we learned that another 2 of our original close contacts tested positive, and this suggested possible transmission within our school. This class would now be shut down by the health department and will remain virtual for at least a week. The silver lining, though, is that now all those close contacts who were not sick but were quarantined at home get their teacher back. Although it's virtual, they're now receiving live synchronous education this week. But it's kind of ironic that it took the transmission of COVID through their classroom to afford them this luxury. We have updated guidance from our experts. The most recent update to the CDC considerations for operating schools in COVID-19 reads, while fewer children than adults have had COVID in the United States, the number of school-age children with COVID has been increasing. Children and adolescents can be affected with the virus, can get sick, and can spread the virus to others. Because children with the virus that causes COVID can spread it to other children and adults, it's important to take measures to minimize risk of spread in the school setting. And the January 7th update for the Pennsylvania Department of Education recommends that we adopt a blended learning model for elementary students only, or completely return everyone to virtual with the exception of our special ed and English learning students. They define blended learning model for elementary only as any model in which the number of students in a building is reduced to allow for social distancing of 6 feet for elementary students, while secondary school students, middle, junior, and senior high engage in all learning remotely. These updates are stressing the significance of social distancing for a reason, because that is what will keep the most students in school consistently. We all want our kids back in school, but it is the responsibility of the school board, the administration, and the nurses to ensure that we bring them back safely. If we follow the guidelines from the experts, 1 sick student in school will not expose and quarantine 8 to 10 others. I believe we can create a learning model that stops disrupting our students' education and is sustainable for the duration of this pandemic. I hope you'll help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Trish. Appreciate that. So what are our next steps? Our goal today was just to provide you with information, to let you know where we think we can go, where we want to go, what some of the barriers are. And one of those barriers is the social distancing thing. We do have a lot of mitigation strategies in place. The 3 big ones, as she had mentioned, were the hand washing, the masking, and then of course the social distancing, the physical distancing. Our next steps are send out the survey. Let's get some real data. Let's get the information from our families, see what they're comfortable with. That's grades 7 to 12, K to 6. We're going to continue to move forward. The board supports that. We're going to continue to move forward and let them work at the building level, and we will work with the buildings to communicate with their families, but let that be more intimate, a building footprint area discussion. We're going to continue investigating this maybe idea of switching an asynchronous day, and we can talk more about that at a future meeting, switching the asynchronous day from a Wednesday to a Friday or a Monday. We need to determine if and when we switch to a revised learning model. Do we continue as is? Do we consider doing a cohort gradual bringing students in 4 days? Or do we kind of go all in at the beginning of the second semester, third quarter on February 2nd and provide instruction to those who want to be in 4 days for 4 days? We still need to keep in mind that our special needs populations will continue as is. Default could be just to continue the current model. We can keep going in that direction. When the current plan was approved this past summer, we did communicate that we would consider an all-in model after we had 4 consecutive weeks of low community transmission, which at that time we thought was going to be January, so that the 3rd quarter we would be comfortable going all in. That hasn't happened. We're still in the significant category. And then if there is a desire to increase student population, some real-time things we have to deal with, we've got to move furniture around. Bob Hunter's crew has done a fantastic job, and Bob Hunter and Jim Fink and the property committee were very proactive in securing the furniture that we need, that if we do have an all-in model, we can put tables in the cafeterias, and then we can return desks and chairs to their rightful place in the classrooms, and we can create a space for everybody that chooses to be all in. We are able to do some things. We are able to be 6 feet in all of our cafeterias and extra spaces. We are able to provide some physical distancing in the classroom. We just can't guarantee 6 feet. So at this point, that is the presentation. I'm willing to entertain questions if you have questions. But at this point, I think we need to have a discussion about which way we want to think about going. Our families should get a sense of where we're looking to go this tonight if possible. And I'll be happy to take any questions at this time. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Rizzo, first I want to thank you and Mrs. Smith for that presentation and all of the details that were included. I think it's important for the community, and the rest of the board may need to comment on this as well, but so many emails have come over asking for us to keep the virtual as an option for the rest of the year. So I would like to say that I believe I hear in your presentation that administration is in favor of that also as just a first step, as a housekeeping item to say, yes, the virtual option will be there if that is where administration and the rest of the board is.
So from the perspective of the administration as well as the association, yes, we do support continuing virtual into the third quarter.
And
Super
do any
point
other
of
board members have a comment on that?
So just a point of clarification, Mr. Rizzo, I think I heard you say for the third quarter. Is that correct? Or is it for the rest of the school year? I think that's just a.
Well, for me, to be fair to our families, my recommendation would be for the rest of the year so that they're not constantly wondering what's going to happen, as long as we have other options in place for those that prefer to not have virtual.
Okay, thank you.
I am totally in favor of continuing virtual through the end of the year.
I agree with that as well. I can't see any reason why you would not, because we always have the possibility that something can happen and throw us back. And if we still have that as an option, it's not going to be as harsh a transition.
I have a couple questions and comments, if I may. So in your presentation, you had indicated to kind of stay the course with the elementary schools. We have, Springford has reopened following the winter break. We've been open for 8 days. We've had 3 shutdowns and a 4th building on notice. That, given Mrs. Smith's presentation, that's a significant interruption to our families, to our students, to our teachers. Which raises a significant concern. I mean, in the course of 6 school days, to see arguably just almost half of our elementary buildings shutting down, that's very concerning. Is there an appetite to really reevaluate the way in which our elementary rooms are the numbers in those rooms and how we're doing it? I think in your Swiss cheese model, you had indicated one of the levels of protection certainly is reducing the numbers. And while we may be reducing numbers that are physically in the building, we haven't at the elementary level really reduced the numbers in the classroom. And I think that's where we're starting to see this contact tracing being an issue. We're seeing those contacts having to isolate and a significant disruption. So is there any appetite to evaluate how we can better balance that for our elementary students and families?
So that's a really good question. And I think if the board is looking to go in that direction, we would be in support of at least looking at it and seeing if there are any other options. Right now, we are not equipped. Administration, association, we're not supporting a hybrid model, or we're not supporting a live synchronous component at the classroom level. So if we were to do something like that, we'd have to talk about what options we would have. Reevaluating for sure.
Thank you. And then I think there's another piece of that, which is, again, the disruption to the students. And we certainly have heard from a number of community members, their concern that, a kindergartner, first grader, second grader is now in this asynchronous environment when they are identified as a close contact. So they may be asymptomatic. They may actually never develop symptoms or test positive, but they're kind of being punished, for lack of a better word. Is administration looking at ways to try to improve that situation for those students who are identified as contacts within a classroom setting or within a school bus as well? Because again, we're not meeting that 6-foot distancing.
Sure, that's fair. And I would say, while punish, we're not punishing anybody. That is, of course, the perception that, all we did was send my child to school, and because they were next to somebody who might have it, then they have to be home and they can't be with their teacher. That's a real perception that's out there, and that's a reality. So it wouldn't be good for us to not consider that. But absolutely, I mean, we are constantly reevaluating our efforts. The association has met with our curriculum and instruction department. They've worked with administration to come up with ways to build more robust asynchronous options on Canvas. That is what we're currently doing. That is currently what we're recommending. And that's one of the things that we're doing to try and try and create better opportunities for our students that are in grades K to 6 that are not able to be in the building.
Okay. And then the last comment that I have has to do with the questions that you had presented for the first survey. I felt they were a little bit unclear and ambiguous, and certainly open-ended questions can be very, very difficult to kind of vet through. So if you receive, 5,000 responses, or if you, 2,000 responses even to vet through that large number of open-ended questions to identify keywords to determine what a priority is, but somebody may have said, not this, and we would identify it as that. So I strongly suggest, having written numerous questionnaires over my lifetime and professionally, you probably want to list out, select all that apply, or rank, priority, if we can only get 3.5 feet, if we can get 4 feet, if we can, rank whether you'd be willing, or yes or no, in each of those scenarios. Because otherwise you'll never be able to really, truly, effectively analyze that data.
That's a fair point. And based on the presentation, what you didn't see was that we did do that. For each one of those questions, we did give options. We did have a lot of clickable items, whether it be radio buttons, select one, or select all that apply. The only one that's really very open-ended is the very last one, the fifth one. We just want parents to have an opportunity to let us know what their thoughts are. But the first 4 questions are very easily sortable, and we're able to disaggregate.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Rizzo, thank you very much for that clear presentation. I would like to actually have Trish Smith come up to the podium again. I have a question for her. So, Mrs. Smith, you described for us what we see, what you're seeing in the K-6 building, in which we have many levels of layers of protection or of protocol in place, with just missing the 6-foot piece of it. We are washing hands, we are, doing all the other protocol. Can you explain to the board and the community what it looks like, the contact tracing at the 7 through 12, in which we do have the 6-foot? You identify a student that has tested positive for COVID. Would you kind of explain a little bit about what the tracing looks like at that level, so we can do a kind of a comparison?
Yeah, it's still complicated. The reason it's complicated is that there's more classes. And like Mr. Rizzo said, we're never really sure whether there's going to be 2 persons in class that day or if there's going to be 17. Seating charts have been a challenge, not for anyone's fault. It's just for the fact that it does change every day. The teachers don't know who to expect. So then we have to compare to absentee. We don't want to start quarantining people that weren't actually in school when that student was infectious. So I can't tell you that it's been easier. It might actually be more difficult, but we have fewer close contacts that we have to quarantine because of the fact that there's fewer students in school, if that makes sense.
Yes, right. So that extra, just that piece, that 6 feet distance, is the difference between quarantining potentially 88 students and quarantining none. So as someone who does the contact tracing personally too, I can find that I can agree it's a lot of man hours for our nurses to contact all the teachers and look at seating charts, but it is not uncommon when we have the 6-foot spacing, when we have seating charts from the teachers, and the teachers can assure us that they have good ventilation, that everyone's in their seats, that they've had their masks on, that we, and we have to check again with the buses, with the library, with the guidance counselors, and with the sports and activities. It's not uncommon that nobody else gets quarantined, that only that student that had symptoms is sent home.
That's the goal. We've always sent our sick students home, but now we're being forced to send our healthy students home because they're too close to the sick student.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So back to Mr. Rizzo. Thank you for all you do. and always with a smile, I'll tell you, Mrs. Smith, and a dance sometimes too. So, Mr. Izzo, one of the things that you presented was this ability to bring more students back into our building at the 7 through 12 level based on the spacing. And like the rest of the board, we are all supportive of the idea of bringing them in. How are we going to find that balance where we can bring students in, but still maintain that 6-foot distancing? So you had presented several ideas about bringing in like waves, like just seniors or more at-risk students, bands of that. That's, I guess, where my question is, my concern is, do we have an idea or the ability to increase the class sizes, but still, for the most part at least, maintain that 6 foot so that we're not quarantining so many students?
Sure, that's a fair question. And unfortunately, and we do have existing data, but the problem is I don't know that it's December is, I don't know if that's an anomaly or if December is just our response to what hybrid looks like, because our numbers are way down. Now, we'll go back to that model of 30 students in a classroom, that they're 4 feet apart, 24 and then 16. A lot of our classrooms, and I talked to my children, and over the course of the 2 weeks prior to the holiday break, I don't think they had more than 4 or 5 kids in a class, 4 or 5 students in a classroom, which means that if we can have 6 foot social distance between kids and 16 kids in a classroom, then we have an underutilized classroom. So that's where we need to find out where parents' comfort is, and the survey will flesh that out for us. We need to know where parents' level of comfort is, and based on the number of people that are willing to come back at certain feet apart, we can get at a number that gives us a little bit more of a confidence in saying we can open up at this rate or at this rate. And if we have 90% of our people that say they want to come back all in 4 days, we're not going to be able to accommodate that 6 feet apart. I don't think we have that. I don't think we have that percentage of families that want to come back 4 days because they still have concerns about being in school and their children being safe. So I think once we find out where that percentage is, that'll help us make an informed decision.
Well, thank you. There is that breaking point also. I may be comfortable sending my child back into an environment in which is under 6 feet, but I may not be comfortable then that the school keeps calling me and telling me my student has to quarantine. So that's another concern there. Thank you.
That's fair. And if we're under 6 feet, let's say, for example, that 70% of our families say they want to come back and they're comfortable with 4 feet space between, they need to go in with the understanding that there's a good chance their child is going to have to go home for so many days, whether we hit a building closure or whether they're a close contact with somebody who has contracted COVID. I'm thankful to say that aside from the possible one that we're talking about at Evans, there's really been no in-school transmission at all. It's all been what's been brought into the building. So while we are not all 6 feet apart from each other, we have been able to keep our kids as safe as possible.
I think that last statement leads us to another question or discussion that we need to have. We agreed when we signed that attestation form to the mask wearing and to building closures when certain numbers were reached in certain buildings. And it's happened twice so far at the 5, 6, 7 building, well, 5, 6, and then it's happened at Evans and it happened at Brook. I think that most of it is the community transmission, but if we're going to say that it has to be school-based transmission, we still need a metric or terms to objectively identify a school-based transmission, that it can't, how do we go about doing that? If we can do that, if the board wants to do that.
I think you kind of jumped out in front a little bit with that question. So I don't know if the board understands what you're referring to, Colleen.
I'm referring to the number of COVID cases in a building that closes a building. And I think the conversation just went to that point. We had Brook that was closed today with 3 cases in the building, which may or may not be linked to school transmission, but possibly community transmission. However, we signed that form and agreed that we would enforce the mask wearing and agree to those building closures when those arbitrary numbers were reached. What is everyone thinking in terms of continuing on this path or considering another metrics that would objectively work for us potentially?
I feel that we established a metric as a result of signing the attestation that we were going to offer in-person learning, even though our county was insubstantial. We accepted that metric. We have communicated that metric to the community. They are becoming familiar with it. They're used to it. They're seeing the warnings. And I think we have, and not that we have jumped around, but PDE has jumped around, CDC has jumped around. And as a result, there have been so many changes, and it's been such a moving target for everybody for for the last 10 months. I think we need to just lock down. This is what we're doing, and we need to move forward so that everybody is on the same page. They understand it, and that's it. I don't think we can keep changing. I think it's the wrong thing to do for our community and for our schools.
I agree. And what about PBE didn't rescind that attestation requirement, and until they do, we can't just say, well, we're not going to do this anymore, can we?
Mark, you jumping in there or want me to? Go ahead.
No, I mean, we're bound by the form. It hasn't changed. PD did come out with updated guidance with regard to learning models, but that's really still guidance. This is the only concrete thing that has come from the Department of Education and the Department of Health has been the attestation form. So unless it is modified from the state or county level, we really have no wiggle room in that regard. I'll note that the closure guidance does allow the district to be working closely with the Department of Health to effectively expedite the reopening of school to the extent tracing and cleaning have been completed. And I gather that the administration is doing that so as to ensure that the closure period, maybe 3 to 5 days, can be as minimal as possible so as to reopen a school once it's needed to close. But again, it's going to be guided by the criteria in that form.
I believe what she's referring to is that there are districts, i.e. in Montgomery County, for instance, that are looking at cases within their buildings, not as cases of kids, students that test positive. They're looking at cases that are related to transmission within the school itself versus just positive test cases. And that's what she's referring to, is that, do we want to continue? Because I believe when you read the form, it was kind of left up to somewhat, what does it mean as far as closures and positive test cases? And there's this belief within the county, I'll say, that schools are counting positive test cases that are related within the building, not unrelated. And unrelated means that a student may have tested positive because they attended a wrestling tournament somewhere in Maryland and they tested positive, and that's the difference between the two. Colleen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what you're trying to refer to.
Yeah, you're right, Tom. That is what I'm referring to. My concern, and what I think pulls this all together a little bit, at least in terms of what I'm thinking here, is that there was an objective metrics that we finally got in place. Community has, I wouldn't say embraced it, but they've accepted it, and it's been used as the tool to monitor objectively how we go forward. And yes, there is, I guess, some level of subjectivity in terms of working with the county, but I believe that is, as Mark said, in terms of how quickly we can accomplish the contact tracing and the cleaning that's required. What's concerning to me is that there seems to be a school of thought that if it's not a school-linked transmission, I believe some schools aren't even counting those cases then, and we are. For example, Brook was not, as my understanding, was not a building or a school-linked transmission, but it still hit that threshold, and therefore, as quickly as the contact tracing and the cleaning can be done, they will be virtual for that period of time. Do we want to, I agree that it's an objective metrics, maybe arbitrary, because I'm not even sure how those numbers were established, but that's what was handed down to us by PDE. Do we continue in that model? If we do, I think we're going to continue to see that contact tracing, which I saw firsthand at Evans last week. I've been visiting the schools. Mr. Raber had said at our last meeting, come see the schools. Some of the emails we've gotten, and I know others have been around too. They see what's happening in there. Everybody working together is fabulous, but when the contact tracing kicks in, and that has to be done, it's chaotic. It's chaos. So do we continue with that metrics from PDE, or do we look to consider another specific formula and evaluation for school-based or school-linked transmission and go off of that? What is the board's?
Colleen, correct me if I'm wrong, but the contact tracing has to occur either way. I mean, it's not going to stop the chaos of the contact tracing that's required. It's still going to be.
So, yeah, I think
I just want to add, there's an FAQ to the criteria, and it specifically notes what students and staff members are included in a school building's rolling 14-day period. And it notes in part that the case count for a school building would include any individual, student or staff, with a confirmed or probable case of COVID-19 who was, and this is parenthesis, who was physically present in the school setting while infectious, including but not limited to instruction, work, sports, or extracurricular activities. So there may be individuals who are identified as a probable case, but may have not been in school. That doesn't count. But if we can put back presence in the school, that will likely count towards our numbers.
And I think the difference here is, whether it's in-school transmission or the potential for in-school transmission. So if you have, a population of 10 individuals and 5 of them all test positive, but none of them occurred in school. Well, the likelihood of the other 5 having been exposed is significantly higher than if you only had 1. So again, I think in that case, when you're looking at these numbers, those were, and yes, Mrs. Zazowski, I agree with you, they're arbitrary numbers, but they're the numbers that PDE set, and they're
Agreed.
the numbers that you signed on the attestation. So I don't know that.
Right, and I'm not saying no. I'm just saying that I think it's very unfortunate that Brook closed because of 3 cases that are not linked to building transmission, as an example. And I'm asking if the board is in favor of continuing in this model or looking at an alternative objective measure. If that would even be possible, and I believe it is, because other districts in Montgomery County are not following this by the letter of the law as we are.
And what basis is their model built on? That's what I would want to know. I mean, how did they come to decide that a model is something that they feel that they can get behind?
My understanding is that if it's specifically determined to be school-based or school-linked, that those are the numbers that are being calculated or tabulated. I don't have further information on that. I can just tell you that that's my understanding.
So I'll jump in here if that's okay. And Mr.
Yes, Mr.
Fitzgerald,
Rizzo.
you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this has evolved over time. It started out, it started out that it was that Montgomery County, whatever that rate was, whatever the PCR positivity rate was, and that drove that submission. If we were more than this and less than this, then we were considered low, medium, high. At one point, we were
we were what, green, yellow, and red, and we had all these different things. And then over the course of time, it shifted. The most recent guidance we had prior to where we are right now was they were looking for 8% PCR positivity or lower. They were looking for us to be under so many cases per 100,000, which was 100 per 100,000, and in-school transmission. That has since evolved yet again. And really the key factor they're looking for is that in-school transmission. A lot of our other Montgomery County partners are able to stay open because they're working with Montgomery County Office of Public Health. They're looking at their total cases in the building that may not have been in-school transmission, but there are cases in the building, and they're getting guidance from Montgomery County Office of Public Health whether or not it's prudent to close or not. And oftentimes that decision is no, it's okay to stay open because there's no link to in-school transmission, so that they stay open. They are still following the attestation form. They're just interpreting it differently because in that recommendations the PD and the Department of Health put out, it says working in conjunction with your local Department of Health. So Montgomery County has been very available to us when we needed them.
Right, so based on all that, then why are we different? Because these other school districts, the schools aren't closing the way we're closing. It's unfortunate because, you know, it's been stated, even Dr. Fauci has stated it, we get the kids back in school. The concerns of what's happening to the students educationally, social, emotional, all this is growing. And we're going into the third marking period. This is, and you know, it was a great presentation, but I grow frustrated because now we're going to survey the parents again. We're going to go, this is going to go round and round. You know, school year is going to be over. There's a point of no return. We're going to get to a point where forget it. Like, forget it. Like, we're not going back to, we're not changing anything because before you know it, the school year's over. We're not, you know, and what are we going to do? Bring the kids back to school, the last marking period of the school year? What are we going to achieve with that? I mean, I too went to and looked at the buildings, and I went to several elementary schools, and I was blown away by how well things were being performed, how well things were happening, how well the students were behaving. I mean, second and third grade, even kindergarten, following the rules, wearing their masks, and I went into the cafeteria and how they were sitting 6 feet apart and all that. And we know that none of these transmissions are, maybe possibly one has occurred in the school, but none of them, or majority of them, are been outside. And the problem is because the students are going, they're you know, different events are now back underway. Wrestling, for instance, I had a parent contact me and said they don't understand how these kids could be rolling around on the mat on Saturday but can't go to school on Monday. How do you answer that question? I mean, how do you respond to that? I told them, well, contact Governor Wolf. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's outside of my control. The kids are going to parties. They're going to birthday parties. They're holiday parties. I mean, this is all over the place. And our students are suffering from an education standpoint, which is the most important out of all of this. And we can't get them back in school because of what's happening when they're not in school. And it's been reported time after time after time that the safest place for these kids are to be in school. Thank you, but I'm not looking for applause. I'm really not. I'm just frustrated because we're going to do a survey. Nowhere in the survey we should ask, do you feel virtual learning is good?
We do ask that question.
I don't remember seeing it. If it's there, good. I mean, you know.
I believe, based on who we shared the survey with and the feedback we got, that we are asking questions to get right where we need to get. And to your point, we are asking for another survey because if we say we're going all in the third quarter and 100% of our families say they want to go back, we are not prepared to handle that right now.
But it's not going to happen. But
you're right, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen, but let's be realistic. But are we able, here's my question. Because when I saw one example of taking 7 weeks to finally get all the kids back from 7th to 12th grade, that's the whole third marking period. So by the time the third marking period's over, it's 7 weeks into it. Now that's how long it's going to take to get the kids back to school. I know that was just one example, but I'm afraid that when we show an example, examples become reality. And it's just like, I'm all for it. Survey the parents, give them 2 days or 3 days. This is what we know. Based on the number of kids that come back, there's a probability that we're going to be at 4 foot or whatever it was, 3 foot, but we know that's not going to happen.
but get the survey out. We're running out of time. We told the parents, and I know everything's been changing and everything evolves, and I know I get it, and it's very frustrating, and it's very frustrating for parents. But we told them that we're going to go back to school the third marking period. Well, here we are, and this is why I brought this up in December. And we were told, you know, it should be pretty quick. If that's the direction we want to go, it should. Well, based on this, it's like I think somebody used the analogy. It's like a light switch. You're just flipping a switch. We're ready to go. Well, this is like a dimmer. It's going to turn a little bit at a time to get these kids back to school.
Well, the nice thing about a dimmer is you can turn it as fast as you want.
Oh, I understand that, but that's my point. We're running out of time one way or the other. So great, let's survey the parents by today's Monday, by Thursday at the latest, because we need to be able to tell these parents what's going to happen February 2nd.
Sure. So our timeline that we're looking at is send out the survey tomorrow. They have until we said 9 o'clock Friday morning. So they had time to get that finished out, completed. We're doing it through Skyward, so we know who did and didn't complete the survey. We were going to disaggregate the data on Friday. Over the weekend, I was going to crunch all the numbers, see and look what we can do, what we can't do, and then share that information on the website and with the board for Monday. And if the board was comfortable with the district making a decision, we make a decision. And if not, then I would say recommendation to start our third quarter in hybrid with a plan, whether it be every week or every couple of days or whatever, to start bringing students back.
My point is that this board, unless we're going to meet next Monday night, this board is not scheduled to meet again until the 25th.
That's correct. I would share the information with you via board memo. I would get that information out to you. And again, I go back to, if you were comfortable with us using the data to make a decision, we would make that decision as early as next week. If not, then it would be on the 25th at the board meeting. We would come to you with a plan for what that's going to look like. I would just say that our families want to know something tonight. So if we're going to wait until the 25th to make a decision, then I think we make the recommendation right now to say we're going to start out in hybrid. Within a couple of weeks, we'll start bringing more kids back.
I don't support that either. My position, I'm one board member. My position is either we start the kids back to school third marking period or just forget it. Because once we go weeks into, and again, I'm one person, and once we go weeks into the third marking period, hybrid, the third marking period is going to be over like that. I mean, we're running out of time, and I know everybody wants to be, I get it, and I want the kids, and I want the students, I want everyone to be safe as well. But we also have to look at what's going on nationally. We got school, Souderton's been back since September. What issues have Souderton have? Are we aware?
To my knowledge, what I've heard is not many. They've had one closure, I believe.
Right. So there's districts out there successfully doing it, and I appreciate Trish Smith and everything that she's wonderful for the district. She's amazing, and I said it for years, and I and I totally support. But we also have to look at what's going on also in other districts. We also have to look on what's going on nationally. PJP, they're back, right?
Yes.
All these schools are back. The parochial schools are back. So somewhere along the line, what are we doing? Because we're trying to have a perfect model here, but schools are going in a direction that they're already at what we're talking about doing.
Well,
I don't disagree. I would just simply say that what I have outlined is a plan with the dates for how to go with an all-in model beginning of the third quarter.
I understand that, and again, I'm one board member, and I'm either we're in the start of the third marking period for 7 through 12, or we're not, because starting a hybrid, going 2, 3, 4 weeks, and I'm going to tell you something. I've talked with parents. The reason why the secondary parents, a lot of the kids just chose virtual, because they got tired. They didn't want to bother coming in for 2 days a week. That's the feedback that I got from parents. They just didn't want to bother with it. They didn't feel that they didn't feel in touch with the school. It was just they'd just rather just stay home. And you may find out when you ask that question, why did you, if you selected to go to school but then you chose virtual, why? And that's probably going to be the reason why, because these students, they just didn't feel connected. Like they were like, I might as well just stay home. because I've heard it, parent after parent after parent. I asked them, you talked to me, you told me that you were going to send your child to school, but now you're not. Why? And they said, because they didn't want to go. They were like, they went once or twice and like, there was nobody in the room. And like, I saw it, because I was at the 9th grade center, I saw it. There was some of the classrooms I poked my head in and I had some really great conversations with teachers, and there was 2 kids in the classroom. And the teacher literally had, I don't know, 15, I didn't ask exactly, but I said, how many have online? They said a lot.
Tom, can I ask you a question? So if you're proposing, you want everybody in 5 days a week, we can't have the virtual option. Is that what you're proposing? We go back.
I didn't say that.
Well, that's what you said, 7 to 12 all in. So I'm asking what that means.
Why
K
can't
through
we have
6 is all in.
Why
What
can't
do you
we,
see?
first off, why can't we have 2 things? One is, I'm fine with the 4 days if you still need that Wednesday, because all that stuff, that's fine. But why can't, we're doing it now. Why can't we continue with the virtual?
Well, that's what I was asking because I didn't understand.
Well,
It
you said we
seemed a very
can.
broad term saying everybody all in.
I'm all for keeping the virtual option through the rest of the school year.
Okay,
I have no
that's
problem
what I
with that.
wanted to hear.
Yeah, I have no
I am
problem with
too.
that.
Okay, I have a couple of comments on that. First of all, we didn't say we would go all back and do all of that for the 3rd quarter. We said we would do that if we had 4 weeks of low transmission, and we are so far into substantial, we're not anywhere near that. And I've talked to a lot of parents too. I'm a parent myself of 3, and I've talked to tons of parents. And a couple of the big reasons that I've heard why they're not there is not at all related to it only being 2 days and not feeling connected, but rather that there was some inconsistency and not knowing and going into the holidays. And you know what? Just better to pull back and wait till after MLK Day or the start of the 3rd marking period. And I think we're going to see the numbers really go through the roof. So I think that those are some things we need to take into consideration. We need to let them do the survey. And I would like to make a motion myself that we allow the administration to make, well, let's go back on that a little bit. I would like administration to make plans based on the survey information, whether that means the option of all in 4 days, staying hybrid, but no matter what, keeping the virtual. I think that should be their option. Mark, is that possible to do that at this time?
I don't know if that needs to be a motion necessarily, if that's the will of the board to ask the administration to bring back learning models from the survey. That's certainly something you guys can direct them to do.
There are also families that have chosen virtual and choose to stay virtual for the rest of the year because of personal or extended family health situations where they cannot, under any circumstances, be exposed to COVID.
I don't hear anybody saying that they, at this board table, that they want to get
I'll
rid of
make
the
a motion
virtual
that
option.
we keep virtual option until the rest of the school year. I mean, I don't want to
I'll
make this
second
become
that.
the topic of conversation.
I second that. Are there any questions or comments on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. So now we have that out of the way. In terms of giving direction for parents for the 3rd quarter, do we want to have administration go forward with their surveys and bring that information back to us at the next meeting, or do we want to make some other decision at this time so that families know and don't have to wait all the way to the 25th?
I think we should absolutely have the survey. Why wouldn't we want all of the community? All we're getting is the most vocal input. We're missing out on the people who don't reach out to us. And I think a survey reaching out to them would be invaluable in finding out where are the people?
I mean, let me ask you, so let's say we put out a survey, and I'm for inclusiveness to get community support. But do we survey parents before the beginning of every school year to see if they're going to send their kids in a non-pandemic environment? I mean, why are we assuming that we need to hear from parents to see if we should open schools?
Well, I think this is, if I understand correctly, Mr. Rizzo, this is really to get numbers, right? Because we initially anticipated 70% of our 7 through 12 students returning to a hybrid model, and only 43% as of December were present. So it's trying to understand what that balance is, what's that need, and how do we make sure that we're capable of accommodating it.
That seemed like an awful lot of questions just to find out, yes, my kid's going in and we're going to be open 4 days. You
But
know,
I think there were two separate surveys.
Well, that's correct. The first survey is really the point of the survey is to talk to our families and find out at this threshold, what percentage of our families are comfortable coming in. At this threshold, what percentage are they comfortable coming in? So that we can make an informed decision. The second is just simply, what are you doing? Here's the data. What are you doing?
But I think we have to go that route because if you remember last time, parents complained, and rightfully so. How can we make a decision if we don't have the information or we don't know what it is? And for the same thing, how can we make a plan if we don't have the numbers and the information of who's coming back? So I think this is the administration's effort at trying to sort that out, to say, okay, give us the information, give us what it is that will work for the individual families, and then take that and, okay, this is what we can do. Now you know what we're going to do. What's your commitment level? Where are you coming? Are you coming, or where are you going to be? And I think we have to do that because it is a pandemic. Whether we want to be done with it or not, it is. So
Look, I'm not, my point is timing. I'm all in favor, do the survey. I also believe that based on where we're at right now, then we need to have a board meeting next Monday night to talk specifically, nothing else on the agenda. If it's a half an hour meeting, it's a half an hour meeting. Nothing else on the agenda. Next Monday night, present, this is where we're at, this is what we got. We have to let people know. I do not want to wait until the last minute and tell people this is what's going on. This is why I brought this up in December. I'm all for it. Survey the parents. I'm all in. I totally agree 100%. We're running out of time. And the longer this stuff stretches out, we're going to get to a point where there's no reason to even think about sending the kids back to school at a certain point. And maybe we're there. I don't know. But let's move. Let's do the survey, get the information. Let's meet next Monday night to only talk about the survey results. And then say, because we're going to do another survey after that. And then you're going to present all that to the board. And then on the 25th, we're going to make a decision. Is that that's what we're saying?
No, what we're saying is we're doing one survey to see what the status is, what our families will support. The second one isn't a survey at all. It's just them letting us know what they're doing.
So it's not a survey.
No, it's really just asking them what their commitment's
It's
going
the
to be.
family commitment to which plan you want to do.
That way we know what our numbers are coming into the building. That's all.
And I thought the reason we had allowed the extra week in between board meetings was to allow the administration time to gather their information. And so that, I don't know, that was just what I had thought we were doing. I agree that our buildings are 7 to 12 are being underutilized. And I agree that we should get them up to that threshold. I agree that some students are disengaged with the, why do I come in 2 days when there's 3 kids in my classroom? I agree by offering them 4 days a week, we're going to get some of those kids. I agree with what Colleen is saying also, that, our students, some of them are kind of waiting till that end of the first semester to finish it out and I think we will get an increased number in that second semester. I agree that we need to get that information from, whether it's a survey, whatever, some sort of information from the parents that if we open up 4 days a week, will your child come in? And at what, so we can have that information. I think it is important that we continue to move forward. I don't believe it's a race or a contest. I believe it's a pandemic, and we are changing every day. I think that we need to, I think the transmission is not happening so much in class, but I think it is the parties that our community are going to. And ironically, I think a lot of them that are going to those parties and to other events are the ones that want to be in our building. But so with all that said, again, considering that we're underutilized, but we need to reach a threshold, we need that information. if the administration believes that we could have information, you could have it for us next Monday night, I am not opposed with what, Mr. DeBello, what you're asking is that we move the informative meeting only to next Monday night. But like I said, we all want the goal of bringing more students in to, but as Fauci had said, we want to get kids in school, but only if we are able to put the precautions into place. So that's where I stand right now. I mean, we're underutilized. There's a threshold. We need this information, and we need to continue to move forward with it. So I'm in favor of considering next
I
Monday.
agree. I think that
They
it would
can.
be nice to get more population in the 7 through 12 who want to be here, who are high needs and need it. Yeah.
So next Monday is MLK Day. Anybody opposed to meeting next Monday, or do we meet Tuesday? And then we would have to bump the committee meetings.
No, let's meet Monday.
I think that has to do with the administration also, their availability.
And if, yes,
But would you even be able to have the information available on a survey that you are ending at 9 o'clock on a Friday morning? Any kind of, would that provide you enough time to gather the information, disseminate it, and be able to present it on Monday or Tuesday?
Before a holiday weekend.
Right, your week, yes, so that gives you technically Friday to do that work. If we do it Tuesday, we have committee meetings, correct?
I mean, at this point in time, the committee meetings could take a back seat. I mean, this survey, it's calculated on the fly. So Mr. Rizzo would have that information right away. This is not a long drawn out process. So do the survey, get the information, meet on Monday or Tuesday, make a damn decision and move on. We're starting to go around this circle again.
Whenever you decide to meet, I will have the information and a recommendation.
I think we should allow for Tuesday evening. We can move our committee meetings or postpone them or something. I think Tuesday's a better choice.
I'd rather have it Monday.
Well, Monday is that an in-service day for you guys, or?
I think Tuesday.
Or is Monday a work,
Monday's a day off for all of our staff and students. But that's okay. That gives me more time to look at the data.
Like Tuesday night too.
I'm good with either night.
Tom, Clinton, where are you guys?
It's not an option. It has to be Tuesday night. The school's
All right,
closed.
Tuesday
Monday,
night.
staff is off.
Tuesday night, it is. Tuesday at 7:30. Okay. I think Mr. Jackson is correct that we are starting to move around, so let's get the information. There was a motion and it was passed to continue the virtual. So parents know that tonight. We will get the information from the surveys and have Mr. Rizzo talk to us only about that item next week on Tuesday night at 7:30. Okay, so then are we clear to move on to board and committee reports? Everybody okay with moving forward with that? Great, I guess so. So then at the Western Center, I want to congratulate Mr. DeBello. He secured the vice chair there and will be representing Springford in leadership there. So we're very happy with that. Mr. DeBello or Mrs. Melton, did you want to comment on anything else related to the reorg meeting that evening?
Yeah, just for a point of clarification, I'm no longer on the board.
Oh my goodness, you're right. I'm so sorry.
If we could make that change, that should be Mrs. Earl. Thank you.
Yes, I'm so sorry about that. I'm sorry, Mrs. Earl. I knew that. That was just old habits. Sorry. So Tom or Wendy, do you have any comments to make from the reorg otherwise?
No. No. There was just a couple motions for business only. So there was nothing else to report on at this point.
That's correct. All right, and then MCIU, do you have a report there?
Well, we haven't had a meeting yet, but that was in the board packet. The IU is preparing for approvals of their budget. So review that, and you'll kind of see the spending that goes on in Spring Forward at the IU.
Okay. Mr. Schaefer, PSBA?
So briefly, to my colleagues on the board, please could you mark March 22nd on your calendar? So this is a day, an annual event for board members that have participated in this. It's the advocacy day where collectively school board members from around the state are making our voices heard with regards to additional support. And this year marks an extra special opportunity for us to gain as much support from our state as possible. Two quick notes that are just in communication to the community. The General Assembly convened last week. There are 31 freshman legislators. The Republicans control the Senate with 28 out of the 50 seats, and the Republicans also control the House with 112 of 203. On February 2nd, we are expecting to see the first version of Governor Wolf's budget for the 21-22 year, and that concludes my report.
All right, thank you.
Dave, could you send us a link or whatever it is to that?
To register, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks.
Thank you.
Great.
And I'm sorry. At this point, I'm sorry, Colleen. At this point, it's scheduled to be virtual. So, yeah, I will provide a link for that. Thank you.
I had gone to Advocacy Day a couple of times. It's really a great opportunity to meet our legislators and those who represent our community and really kind of talk through some of the challenges that as a district we may be facing. But again, establish those relationships and have a presence. There's usually, and Mr. Schaefer, I don't know if you know this year, typically there's 2 or 3 kind of key focus points that PSBA puts out for us that, kind of highlighting different things. So, whether it's special ed funding or, those sorts of things. So typically they'll provide information and background for that too.
No, they're not out. I mean, I was going to comment briefly that they're, certainly with the new law that was passed on December 27th from the federal government with regards to additional funds available for the school district, that may be an area of importance, but they haven't indicated yet. I'll communicate that with everybody if they do.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Gooden, do you have your last superintendent's report for us this evening?
Thank you, Ms. Sosowski. I don't have a report this evening, but I do want to just make a few general comments. First of all, I appreciate the support of the community over the past 10 years and the support of my administrative team, both past and present, as well as the support of my school board, both past and present. And I will say that school districts don't move forward by the efforts of one individual. It just doesn't happen like that. And I have been very blessed to have a team to work with that are highly competent and capable. And certainly the community has been supportive of things that we've tried to do and the things we've been able to accomplish. And I just appreciate that. And I would say that I wouldn't trade the last 10 years for anything. It's been my pleasure and my honor to serve the Spring Forward School District, but it is time for me to move on. And so I will be going home, closer to my family, my children, my grandchildren, and working in a district that hopefully I can continue my career in. And I look forward to that. But I just want to thank everybody that I haven't got a chance to talk to personally and just let them know how much I care for them and appreciate their years of support. I wish Mr. Rizzo all the best in his career. I've only had 2 assistant superintendents in my tenure. One is Dr. Roach, and the second is Mr. Rizzo. And I think that I am leaving the Springford School District in very capable hands, both his hands and my administrative team and my all the way down to the building level. We are leaving the district in very capable hands. I would encourage the community to continue to support your district and to help your district move forward. I have said this before, and so I'll take my opportunity to say it again. We've just gone through time, and we're still in this time. There are no right answers, and I'm sure there's lots of folks out there that think they have the answer, but they don't. We're all feeling our way through this, and it takes a team to move forward. So I wish you all the best. I wish the Springford community the best, and I especially want to just call out my administrative team that I've so enjoyed working with, both past and present. So Springford, I wish you all the best, and as you move forward, and Mr. Rizzo specifically, I ask, I just thank you for your support and your loyalty. You came in and you just picked up, and I appreciate that. And you've been a great help to me and encouragement to me, and I appreciate that. And I wish you all the best in your career.
Thank you, Dr. Gooden. You will be sorely missed. Mr. Fitzgerald, do you have a solicitor's report this evening?
I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Okay, moving on through the agenda. Regarding the minutes, A and B, are there any questions or comments? Personnel, A through I, questions or comments? Finance, A through I, questions or comments? Other business, A and B. Mr. Rizzo, I have a question about A, the calendar. That is the second version you're referring to, the one that is preferred by the administration?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? There is an informational item. Effective the 1st of this year, the IRS mileage rate will be 56 cents per mile, which is a decrease from the 2020 rate of 57.5 cents per mile. And now board comment.
Hey, Colleen,
Yes.
just for clarity, so people understand, that's not the school district that makes that rate up. That's a federal rate that's established that we follow each year.
Yes, the IRS mileage rate, IRS.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Correct.
Also, it wasn't on the agenda, but I think that I thought we're going to have a conversation at some point regarding the step forward for superintendent process. As you know, maybe as a first step, we should at least put out an RFI for request for information for companies that provide superintendent search services, so that we could start getting some information, because it is a long process. I know it'll be hard to replace Dr. Gooden, but we're sure going to try. And it is a long process, but so we should try to maybe, I don't know if we need a motion for that, or we could just say, if the board's in agreement, we could start do an RFI to get information from companies that do search services, so that we could start gathering information up.
Absolutely. I did believe this was going to come up at this point. Didn't want to put the cart before the horse and have it on the agenda, so to speak, but I did believe it would come up at this point, and I'm certainly in favor of what you're saying. Is the rest of the board in favor of that direction? Or Mark, do we need a formal motion for that?
You don't need a formal motion, just see if the board is supportive of it.
Okay, would the board support that?
Yeah, I'm in favor of that.
And just as a side recommendation, one of the places I would recommend as well is that the IU just recently used a firm for the executive director search. So it was very reasonably priced, but it's just someone that we should reach out to the IU and get their information and provide. I'm not saying go with them. I'm just saying that there is an avenue there as well.
100%, 100%.
So from a time frame standpoint, when can we expect the results of this? What are your thoughts? Is this something like, is this a 2-week thing? So by the board meeting, or a month?
I think that we should be able to get information back by the 25th. I think giving 2 weeks is reasonable. There's firms that they specialize in superintendent searches, so they already have their packets available as far as the services they provide for us to review.
So can we then expect perhaps a summary presentation on the firm's options for our next, well, I guess our next board meeting is next Tuesday, but the week after that?
I would suspect that the information could be put in a board memo. I don't know how we would go about it from there. I think when I was saying RFI, we could jump right to proposals and skip the RFI. I was just suggesting an RFI because there's many board members on this board that never participated in superintendent research, search, and I think it will be educational to get the information before we go for proposal. But we could go right to the proposal, but I think there's going to be a lot of questions when people see the services that are provided by each, some are very similar, some are slightly different. So I was just recommending an RFI first, so it'll be more from an educational standpoint for board members.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I do ask, who does this RFI and gathers this information typically in this situation? Does this come out of
I mean,
human
I think
resources?
the current administration would likely handle gathering the information and then sharing it with the board.
Thanks for bringing it up, Tom. Thanks. Yeah, let's get moving.
All right, any other board comment related to this or another topic?
I'm going to ask the board to next week, please, as Mr. DeBello mentioned earlier, that the only topic we talk about next week is the survey. No committee meetings, not that Doug Peterson got fired, there's nothing. It's strictly the survey. That's it.
That's correct. That's what's on the agenda already.
Well, and that would include proposed models, yes? I'm asking.
I think Mr. Rizzo presents all the information required for the board to digest and make a decision.
Okay. All right, other board comment? And we'll move back to public to be heard. Are there anyone in the room that wishes to speak?
Mrs. Rosky, this is Rich. We have 2 people to speak
In person or on the Zoom?
in person.
In person. Okay, great. Go ahead, please.
Kelly Olson, 711 Sourwood Lane, Collegeville, PA, 19426. Mr. DeBello, thank you for speaking tonight. I can wholeheartedly appreciate your frustration with all of the situation of in school, out of school, who's going back, who's not going back. I just ask you and the entire board to please don't throw your hands up. Please keep working. I have a senior. The days are counting down, and she will no longer be a Springford student. I'd like her to have a little bit, as much as possible, of her senior year that she can enjoy. Thank you.
Roland Olson, 711 Sourwood Lane. Just want to say to Dr. Rizzo, that was a great presentation, a lot of great information. I think he's done us a great service in getting us moving forward with this survey plan. I think it's great that you're going to gather this information. There's a lot of good data from your presentation that I think is going to give a lot of people out there feeling good about what are the possibilities for next week's board meeting. So great job with that. And thank you for including so many stakeholders in that. I think also it's important, as Colleen, you had brought up the topic related to, should we be considering additional metrics? Dr. Gooden has indicated it. Dr. Fauci has indicated it. Even Governor Wolf has indicated that, we need to get our kids back in school because this is the safest place for them. And in Dr. Rizzo, in Mr. Rizzo's, not that you're not going to be a doctor one day, Dr. Rizzo, but future Dr. Rizzo, it indicated that the Swiss cheese plan is working. Colleen referenced the fact that we don't have cases being transmitted in our schools. It's something we should be applauding. We should be celebrating. And if our kids and our teachers and our administrators aren't in an environment where the Swiss cheese plan is working, then they're out in the world, doing things that are out of our control. So, I think we should be talking to the Department of Health, the county Department of Health. It sounds like they're open to it and they're understanding of, we don't need to be shutting down our schools if transmission isn't occurring in our schools. It's safer to be here. So I know, Mr. Fitzgerald, you were reading the frequently asked questions there, but maybe there's an opportunity to push back a little bit, and we don't have to be sheep. We could say, listen, look at us, look at Souderton. What we're doing from a safety standpoint is working. All these tape indicators on the floor, our spacing of everything, it's working. We can be a model for success as it relates to battling this thing and providing a safe environment for not just us and you and our students and our teachers, but for the community at large. It's better that they're here making good stuff happen as opposed to out in the world. We're clear, we know that, going to Kohl's and Target and wherever else, that's not working. So I just wanted to say that, Colleen, we miss you. Hopefully we'll see you at the next one on Tuesday, but thanks for bringing that up. That was important.
Okay, do we have, thank you for the
One more.
speakers. Oh, we do, okay, sorry.
Michael Lebedzinski, 2005, Willowwood Drive, Rocheford. Just want to set the record straight here. Lying is a serious breach of trust. An elected official lying in a public meeting during an official meeting is even worse and ruins one's credibility, aside from being a direct violation of their oath of public office. Sadly, Mrs. Fazzini has chosen to condemn a lawful protest and then immediately escalated the situation by lying about the protest at the home of an elected official who willingly ran for office. Coincidentally, there's a video of the entire event posted online documenting exactly what happened. Contrary to allegations and confirmed in the video, at no time did any of the protesters step onto her property. They remained on public property the entire 30 minutes of the protest. As the video also shows, there were a total of 7 people, not the 15 Mrs. Fazzini exaggerated for effect. This number is not an estimate. It's confirmed by the video and in the official Upper Providence Police report of the incident. Lies of omission are equally alarming. Mrs. Fazzini omitted to tell you that her husband charged out onto the lawn with a weapon raised in his hand. It was so alarming that one of the protesters feared for her life and called 911. She also omitted the fact that her husband had to be detained by 3 Upper Providence police officers and warned he'd be arrested if he didn't drop the weapon. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution protects citizens' rights to assemble peaceably to have their grievances heard and to advocate for equality, education, and choice. Last summer's protests reminded us of that, except for the peaceably part, with all the shootings, beatings, fires, looting, public property seizures, etc. All Springford parents have the right to be told the truth and not to be lied to. Thank you.
Do you have anyone that wishes to speak on the Zoom?
Mrs. Roski, we have a couple callers online. Mary McNamara, please state your full name and address.
Hi, good evening. Oh, sorry about the Christmas tree. My name is Mary Jo McNamara, 187 Abbey Drive, Royersford, PA. I'd just like to make a couple of comments, right? Just to follow Michael's comments, I agree. You know, the population needs to be able to be heard, and the population needs to be able to be told the truth. I'm just going to leave it at that. There's, you know, I think I've voiced my opinions of some of the stuff with Mrs. Fazzini and previous kind of previous fall in or you know, I don't know how to say it, but just a previous run-in where, you know, I just think we need to tell the truth. That's all. I also would like to just say tonight, thank you to Mr. Rizzo, to be presented with factual information, with potential steps to go forward, with data. I look forward to getting the survey out, responding to the survey, and reviewing the results of the survey and moving to get our kids back into school in person. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Emily Bell, please state your full name and address and your public comment, please.
Hi, my name is Emily Bell. I live at 339 Spring Street in Royersford. I just wanted to say two things. The first is more of a question, which of course is just for thought. I don't expect an answer, but I'm wondering if IEP and ELL students need to be included in building closures if a COVID situation does not occur in their classroom, simply because it's more disruptive to them and they have a harder time learning virtually. And because, like, for example, in my kids' classroom, they are more than 6 feet apart from their peers, and there's plenty of room for them to do that. So I'm wondering if that could be considered, if it's a way we can keep our kids with IEPs, ELLs, students in the buildings, even if there's a closure, so long as it doesn't involve anyone that they've been in contact with. And secondly, I just want to say that as a parent who needs to send my kiddos to school in person, our family takes very seriously what we do outside of school. And we try to be very good about socially distancing, not going out to anywhere that we don't need to go to. We have our groceries delivered, we pick them up, because school is so important for our kids to be able to attend. And so I just urge other families to try to do the same so that we can minimize these closures if they aren't happening in school. If they're mostly coming from community exposure, then we have the ability to stop that. And I just encourage people to try to do better about social distancing outside in the community.
That, Mr. Rizzo, Mr. Rizzo, that first question is a great question. Could we get a response to that next week after with our meeting, so guys could look into that and see?
Absolutely. I will say right now, the language is that we cannot do that, but I also know that we're closing possibly a little more frequently than other schools are, so there could be some wiggle room that we'll look into.
Yeah, so yeah, let's look into that, because that's a great question.
Very good. Yes.
Morris, please state your full name and address and your public comment, please. Morris.
Can't unmute. Oh, hello.
Okay.
All right, I'm sorry. Kathy Morris, 420 Church Street in Royersford. Just wanted a quick comment, kind of / question, obviously not going to get answered like the last caller said, but my family was one that was affected this past week with having to quarantine a healthy child. Understandable. I understand that's the risk we take sending our kids back into school. But in our case, it was because of a staff member that she was in close contact with. So I was just wondering if we can maybe think about possible staff, therapists, faculty testing, you know, maybe at the start of the week, especially after a long break, because I know myself and a bunch of other families really tried to take the holiday break seriously so that we could, be safe and protect everybody else in school. And then to go back for 2 days and have to quarantine for 7 because of someone outside of the home, it's just a little frustrating. So again, understandable, but maybe something to think about.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments on the Zoom?
Next caller is Mike Alphonse. Mike, full name and your address. Mike. Moving on. Farah, please state your full name and address and your public comment, please.
Farah Aversano, 306 Constitution Drive in Collegeville. I just want to thank the board for everything that they're doing. I want to thank the administration for everything that they're doing. And I just implore you to please consider to bring these kids back to school on a consistent basis. You need consistency. And please consider our seniors. That's it.
Melanie Bowen, please state your full name and address and your public comment, please.
Hi, this is Melanie Bowen, 260 Rivercrest Drive, Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. I just wanted to thank Mrs. Pizzini for her commitment to public education, and I want to apologize that she and her family were harassed in the way that they were. It's completely absurd and inconceivable that they would come to your home in that way. And I just wanted to offer my condolences for that. Thank you.
Mike Alphonse, one more time. Mike. At this time, we have no other callers.
Okay, so with that, we will meet again next week then on Tuesday at 7:30 to specifically and only to review the survey information as presented to us by Mr. Rizzo and administration, and also whatever information can flow from that he will be able to share with us, if that's typically in terms of models. Beyond that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.